Let's get out to our reporters now and join Keith Downey to discuss Newcastle. Good afternoon to you, Keith. Newcastle, they are going through a difficult period at the moment. Could that force Steve Bruce into making signings sooner rather than later?
Tom, I don't really think it's Steve Bruce's choice at this moment. He's been pretty clear throughout that it will take time to bring in the players he wants. He won't have any money to spend in this January transfer window, Tom. It's going to have to be loan signings, and he's been pretty clear that he's going to have to wait. There is an interest, as I understand, in the Leicester City midfielder Hamza Choudhury and also the Manchester United fullback Brandon Williams, but he does feel if he's to get one or either of those, it might be later on in the window. Neither Manchester United or Leicester, both their managers have stated so far already that they will not deal until later on in the window, or will not allow their players out until later on in the window. So he's going to have to wait and see. It's obviously difficult for him, it's difficult for the supporters. They're on a poor run just now, no wins in the last 8. Of course, lost to Sheffield United the other night, giving them their first win of the season, and there is mounting pressure on Steve Bruce from the fan base here at Newcastle United, who are not happy with what they're seeing on their televisions. But if they are to add, and I must stress that it will be loan signings if they are able to, it will be later on in this window, and I do not see anything in the offing, certainly in the next couple of days or so.
Keith, we know the club have been hit severely by coronavirus, several players still out suffering. Could that have an impact on any potential signings? Could they maybe increase the numbers just because of the players that are out because of the coronavirus?
Yeah, Addy, it's a difficult one, that, because I think they had 10 or 11 positive cases within the first team squad. But of those, most of it just kind of passed over and they were able to get back into training fairly quickly. There's the 2 players that I'm sure that we're all aware of, Alan St-Maximin, who's the talisman at the club's best player, and also the captain Jamal Lascelles, who have been affected a lot more badly. They've had long-term effects of coronavirus. In fact, St-Maximin, who's been back in France with his family over the summer once he tested negative, is only just back in the country, or back in the northeast last week. So, as Steve Bruce said last week, he'll probably need a couple of weeks under his belt in terms of training before he can get back involved and available for selection. Lascelles, we saw come back and play for the first time at the weekend against Arsenal in the FA Cup, but he only lasted 45 minutes. Steve Bruce revealing afterwards that is because of the long-term effects. He is still fatigued and he was not involved the other night against Sheffield United. So there are only 2. I get your point. If there were a lot more that had that fatigue element and it was causing them a lot of long-term problems, he probably would look to add. But I think he's well aware that maybe in a couple of weeks' time St-Maximin will be back at his disposal, and Lascelles, who I say is already in and around the first team, played that 45 against Arsenal. But it's a difficult one, it's a hard one, because we're obviously criticising, the supporters are criticising Steve Bruce at the moment a lot. We do not know the ramifications of that COVID situation. Obviously they played poorly the other night against Sheffield United, but was that due to the fact that they're on that bad run and the tactics were bad, or is that due to the fact that there is that fatigue within the first team squad just now? Really difficult to know. It's a situation not just Newcastle, I suppose a number of other teams are facing just now. But no, to answer your question, I don't think the COVID outbreak that we saw a couple of months ago at the club will have any effect with regards to incoming players. I think Steve Bruce already had his list in his head before that. I don't think it's changed as a result of the COVID outbreak.
Keith, you were very open in talking about the fact that you expected maybe business in the latter part of the window, but does Steve Bruce need to have players leave the club in order to raise funds? And if so, who could leave?
Yeah, there's 3 players actually, JD, who are not part of the 25-man squad, and Steve Bruce would be keen for them to go out. They are surplus to requirements. It's kind of lesser known names, really. A lot of people won't have heard of them play in the Premier League much. Ashraf Lazar, the Moroccan left-back, is one. Henry Save, who's been here for 3 years, the Senegalese midfielder, that's number 2. And Christian Atsu, who has played a lot more in the Premier League and with Newcastle in the Championship. All 3 of those are surplus to requirements and available to transfer. We saw Rolando Aarons join Huddersfield until the end of the season. He was the 4th one. But because JD, none of those are part of his actual 25-man squad, I don't think it makes that much of a difference. They're fairly irrelevant to that. But if he was to bring in, say, Brandon Williams, his age would mean that he falls below that 25-man category and can join the squad anyway. That would be the case, I believe, with Hamza Choudhury as well. So he's kind of looking at younger players who've got some Premier League experience that can come in and help. If he was to bring someone in with experience, he would have to lose one of that 25-man squad. I have to say, looking at the squad right now, I can't see any of the Newcastle United players moving on in this window. The one who's coming towards the end of his contract is actually Kieran Clark, the Republic of Ireland international, and Steve Bruce has said that he's already in talks with him over a new contract. I think that one is pretty close. So I can't see any of those players being removed out of the 25-man squad. So that's kind of where we lie with that. If he was to bring in the likes of Brandon Williams, say, or Hamza Choudhury, they would supplement that 25-man squad due to their age. So that is the kind of waters that he's fishing in at the moment. But just to kind of encapsulate the whole thing, it's a difficult time for everyone. What with the pandemic, what with the pressure on Steve Bruce, and I must say at this club at the moment, the bigger issue is the form in the pitch, and that seems to be taking precedence over anything else, including transfers. So yeah, as I say, I think it will be later on in the window if they are to add 1 or 2 loan signings, but certainly not expecting any big signings for any money that we saw in the summer when the likes of Callum Wilson, Ryan Fraser and Jamal Lewis arrived for around £35-40 million. That won't happen this window. I'm sorry, Newcastle United fans, but that won't happen.
Yeah, they won't like to hear that. Keith, thank you. Yeah, a couple of tweets have come in, by the way. Unfortunately, they're all against the manager rather than about players that should come in. Daniel says only transfer Newcastle need is a new manager. Kev says we need a new manager. More than anything is playing the defensive way to hopefully nick a draw stroke win is not the Newcastle way to play. So Newcastle fans have been particularly vocal about their disappointment in recent weeks. Their form has dipped. Would a good January transfer window make a difference? Well, we asked double Ashes winner and Newcastle fan Steve Harmison.
Hi, I'm Steve Harmison, former England fast bowler and massive Newcastle United fan. In this transfer window, I think Newcastle are going to need Messi, Ronaldo, Fernandes, you name it, top players in the world. Under Mike Ashley and the current regime, we're not going to get it. So fingers crossed Steve Bruce can get at least 1, possibly 2 players in. Could do with some people coming back from COVID to give us a good chance of staying up and not being in a relegation battle.
OK, yeah, quite passionate there, Steve Harmison, wasn't he, about the way Newcastle are at the moment. What he did say was that he hopes that 1 or 2 players could come in. And as Keith was saying, it is 2 players that they want, but just both on loan. Yeah, and that's kind of the market they've operated in. That's what they did in January anyway, aside from the summer when they spent some money. In January last year, you obviously remember Danny Rose coming in from Tottenham, a last-minute deal, that one, surprising. And that's what Steve Bruce is going to have to operate in again. They do want a left-back. That left-back we're hearing that they are linked with, and a left-back that maybe could move to get more playing time is Brandon Williams, who obviously isn't getting the playing time right now at Manchester United. And in terms of a central midfielder, Hamza Choudhury. Now, to be fair, you listen to what Newcastle fans look. Many more are going to tweet in. They want a striker as well. They want someone that can help Callum Wilson get the goals. But it doesn't look like that's the options right now, or that doesn't look like what Steve Bruce is trying to go for in this market. So, yeah, it's going to be a central midfielder to complement what they've got there. Jeff Hendrick, John Joe Shelvey, Matt Longstaff, Sean Longstaff as well. And they need a left-back. Yes, Jamal Lewis is there. He's young. Maybe they need someone else to kind of help him out for cover more than anything. I mean, they've got Paul Dummett who can play there, but often he's at the left of a back 3, and then Matt Ritchie can play as a wing back, but not necessarily a left back. So you can see why they would need that. But those players linked, good players though, JD. I mean, they are good players, and you speak about them both, really, really good young talents. But I thought what was most interesting from Keith's live, and obviously Keith is the man to know inside of Newcastle, was the sort of small target or pool of target that he's actually targeting in terms of potentials to come in. You're talking about young players that can fit in because of the registration and the fact that not many players can actually leave Newcastle or expected to leave Newcastle during this window. I think that is a huge determining factor as to how many players you're actually expecting to come in through the window, because they're only looking at a small pool of players that they can actually register during that time.